It was a calm, warm afternoon in a quiet neighborhood where the sun shone gently on the rows of neatly kept houses. People were out and about, enjoying the simple joys of a normal day. Kids played in their front yards, some riding bikes, others chasing each other in laughter. The hum of cars passing by created a familiar background noise, a rhythm of everyday life. Everything seemed peaceful until a black sedan slowly came into view. Blending in with the usual traffic. Inside the car was a young professional, focused on the road and thinking about the day ahead. The driver had a calm demeanor, the kind of person who always followed the rules, drove carefully, and respected everyone around them. But as the car approached an intersection, a police cruiser suddenly appeared behind, lights flashing. The heart of the driver skipped a beat, a mixture of surprise and concern washing over. Pulling over was automatic, hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. There was a moment of silence, the kind that feels heavier than it actually is, where the person inside the car wondered what was about to happen. Officer Daniels stepped out of the cruiser. He was known in the neighborhood as a strict, no-nonsense kind of officer. He had a reputation for taking traffic stops very seriously, perhaps too seriously. As he walked toward the sedan, his expression was hard, and there was an intensity in his eyes that made it clear he expected full compliance. The driver rolled down the window, offering a polite greeting and the necessary documents. At first, everything seemed like a standard traffic stop, the kind that happens countless times every day without incident, but then something changed. Officer Daniels' tone became sharp, almost accusatory. He questioned the driver in a way that felt unnecessarily harsh. The driver remained calm, answering clearly and respectfully, trying to de-escalate the situation. Yet the officer seemed determined to escalate it. A passerby on the sidewalk noticed the tension immediately and instinctively pulled out their phone to record, sensing that this encounter might not end quietly. The camera captured every moment, from the stern voice of the officer to the calm replies of the driver. The situation grew more intense as Officer Daniels stepped closer to the car. His posture was aggressive, his gestures abrupt. He demanded the driver exit the vehicle, even though there was no clear reason for such a command. The driver complied, understanding that resistance could make things worse. But inside, fear and confusion mixed with a sense of injustice. The young professional had done nothing wrong, yet suddenly found themselves on edge, unsure of what might happen next. Neighbors, now aware of the escalating situation, began to gather. Some peered cautiously from behind curtains, while others stepped outside to watch, keeping a safe distance but unable to look away. Whispers ran through the small crowd forming naturally along the street. "What's going on? Why is the officer so angry?" The questions hung in the air, unanswered. The camera on the sidewalk continued to record, capturing the intensity of a situation that seemed to spiral beyond reason. The driver's hands were raised slightly, showing compliance, but the tension remained. Officer Daniels' voice grew louder, commands sharper. What could have been a simple traffic stop now felt like an ordeal, a test of patience and nerves. The calm neighborhood was now a stage for an event that nobody had expected, and everyone who watched could feel the unease in the air. The young professional, despite the fear, tried to keep composure, speaking clearly and respectfully, hoping to calm the officer. Each word seemed to bounce off, ignored or dismissed, as Daniels appeared more focused on asserting control than understanding the situation. The crowd of neighbors continued to grow. Some people recorded on their phones, their faces a mixture of concern and frustration. Others simply watched, hoping silently that the officer would realize the unnecessary severity of the situation. Children who had been playing nearby paused, sensing the tension even if they didn't fully understand it. The atmosphere shifted from ordinary peace to palpable anxiety. Time seemed to stretch. Every second felt longer than the last, as though the world had slowed to watch this confrontation unfold. The young professional felt a tight knot in their stomach, every instinct screaming to stay calm and compliant, while inside they were bracing for something they couldn't predict. Officer Daniels' eyes darted around, occasionally focusing on the small crowd, his voice rising intermittently. Commands and questions came in rapid succession, often without waiting for answers. Each moment added weight, and the scene, once ordinary, now carried an air of tension that hung heavily over the neighborhood. Suddenly, a sharp movement made everyone flinch. Officer Daniels gestured for the young professional to step closer. The crowd instinctively held its breath. The tension became almost tangible. The driver complied, trying not to make any sudden moves. The air was thick with anticipation, a mix of fear, anger, and helplessness. The recording device in the neighbor's hand continued to capture it all. A silent witness to an event that would soon be seen by many beyond this quiet street. Throughout the encounter, the driver maintained a steady voice, answering questions clearly and calmly, trying to show respect even under pressure. But the officer's behavior grew more unpredictable. What should have been a simple stop, perhaps even forgettable, had now escalated into a confrontation that was uncomfortably personal. The neighbors watched, some whispering to each other, some silent, unable to look away. Everyone could feel that the balance of power had shifted in a way that was troubling Dot as the confrontation continued. The young professional realized that the situation was no longer just about the traffic stop. It had become about asserting rights, maintaining dignity, and hoping for a fair outcome. Each movement and each word mattered. Every witness, every recording, every observer added weight to the moment. The tension was like a tightrope, with everyone involved aware that one wrong step could have serious consequences. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, Officer Daniel's demeanor shifted slightly. Perhaps noticing the growing crowd or the recording in progress, he took a step back, reassessing the situation. The driver remained calm, not wanting to provoke further escalation. The neighbors continued to watch, some relieved, some still anxious. The feeling that this could have ended differently hung in the air, a reminder of how quickly a normal day could turn extraordinary. As the first part of the confrontation drew to a close, the young professional was allowed to remain at the scene while the officer continued to assess the situation. The tension had not disappeared, but a small window of calm emerged. The recording of the incident was already on its way to social media, ready to inform the larger community about what had just happened. This day, ordinary in appearance, had transformed into a story that would ripple through the neighborhood and beyond, marking the beginning of a series of events that no one could have predicted. The young professional took a deep breath, trying to steady themselves. They realized that what had started as a routine traffic stop had turned into a moment of high stakes, where courage, calm, and composure were tested. The neighborhood, once quiet and serene, had witnessed a small but significant drama unfold, the kind that changes perceptions and prompts reflection. People returned to their routines slowly, but the memory of the incident lingered in the air, a silent reminder that the ordinary could suddenly become extraordinary, and that sometimes the right actions could make all the difference in moments of crisis. After the tense encounter on the quiet suburban street, life in the neighborhood seemed to slow down for a brief moment, but the incident did not stay contained. The video recorded by the neighbor began circulating on social media almost immediately. At first, it was shared among a few local community groups, and then it spread further, reaching people across the city. The footage showed the interaction from beginning to end, capturing every word, gesture, and moment of tension. Comments and reactions started pouring in. Many expressed outrage at the officer's behavior, while others discussed the proper procedures for traffic stops, debating what went wrong. For the young professional, seeing the video online brought a mix of relief and apprehension. Relief, because the world could now see what happened. Apprehension, because there was no telling how the attention would unfold. Calls started coming in from friends and colleagues asking if they were okay. Messages of support and concern arrived from people who had watched the clip, expressing shock and offering encouragement. Despite the support, the situation felt overwhelming, the weight of public attention pressing on them like never before. At the local police station, the video caused an immediate stir. Internal discussions began behind closed doors. Officers watched the footage, their faces serious as they assessed the actions of Officer Daniels. Department leadership realized that the incident had escalated beyond what could be handled quietly. The public reaction was intense, and the media had picked up on the story, adding to the pressure. The decision to place Officer Daniels on administrative leave was made quickly, signaling that the department understood the seriousness of the situation and that they needed to respond. Meanwhile, the neighborhood was buzzing. People discussed the incident at small gatherings, in cafes, and during evening walks. Some were angry, some disappointed, and others simply concerned for the young professional. The sense of community awareness grew rapidly, with neighbors talking about accountability and the importance of fairness in law enforcement. The incident became a topic that connected people in ways that everyday life rarely did. Conversations that would have been casual now had a layer of seriousness, a shared concern about safety, respect, and justice. The young professional, despite being shaken by the incident, knew that taking formal steps was necessary. Filing a complaint with the police department was the first move. Every detail of the encounter was recounted clearly and calmly, including the officer's words, gestures, and the moments that had made them feel threatened. The statement included references to the neighbor's video, which served as crucial evidence. The act of documenting the incident provided a sense of control and purpose, transforming feelings of fear and confusion into action. Public interest continued to grow. Local news outlets picked up the story, reporting on the video, the officer's leave, and the community's reaction. Interviews with neighbors highlighted how unusual the incident was, emphasizing that traffic stops typically did not escalate to such levels of aggression. The young professional found themselves at the center of a discussion they had never anticipated being part of, but their composure and clear recounting of events earned respect from reporters and viewers alike. Community leaders saw the video and recognized the need for a public response. Meetings were organized in local community centers, bringing together residents, advocacy groups, and officials to discuss the incident and its implications. Questions arose about police training, use of authority, and the proper handling of minor traffic violations. People expressed frustration and fear, but also hoped that this situation could spark meaningful change. The young professional was invited to share their perspective at these meetings, giving voice to the experience of an ordinary citizen facing an extraordinary situation. As the days passed, social media continued to buzz with discussions about the video. Experts on law enforcement procedures weighed in, analyzing each action and decision taken by Officer Daniels. Many praised the young professional for remaining calm under pressure, highlighting the importance of staying composed in situations that could easily spiral out of control. Online conversations often included questions about citizens' rights, proper behavior during police encounters, and the role of community oversight. The incident was sparking a citywide dialogue about accountability and responsibility. At the same time, the young professional received advice and support from attorneys and advocacy organizations. These professionals offered guidance on how to navigate the process of filing complaints, interacting with the police department, and understanding legal rights. The young professional listened carefully, absorbing advice while maintaining focus on their personal well-being. The emotional impact of the incident was real, but they remained determined to use the experience as a catalyst for positive change. Officer Daniels' position within the department grew increasingly precarious. Internal reviews revealed that he had previous minor complaints, though nothing as serious as the recent incident. The administration faced difficult questions about oversight and accountability. Rumors began circulating within the department, some sympathetic to the officer, others critical. Nevertheless, leadership maintained a public stance emphasizing the seriousness of the behavior and the need for proper review and consequences. Community support for the young professional manifested in many ways. Local groups organized events to discuss civil rights, legal procedures, and citizen advocacy. Residents signed petitions and wrote letters demanding transparency and reform. The young professional, initially overwhelmed by attention, began to understand that their experience was now part of a larger conversation. They found courage in knowing that their actions could help prevent others from facing similar situations. Meanwhile, the incident sparked debates on television and radio programs. Legal experts analyzed the officer's conduct and emphasized the importance of evidence, such as recordings in ensuring justice. Conversations in classrooms, offices, and public spaces began focusing on rights and responsibilities during encounters with law enforcement. The neighborhood, once quiet and ordinary, became a symbol of the larger issue of accountability, illustrating how a single incident can ripple far beyond its immediate surroundings. The young professional also had personal challenges to manage. Anxiety and stress were natural responses to the sudden public attention. Friends and family provided emotional support, offering practical advice on handling media inquiries and maintaining privacy while staying engaged with the broader conversation. The young professional took steps to care for their mental well-being, understanding that advocacy was important. But self-care was equally necessary. As weeks passed, the local police department coordinated with external authorities to conduct a more formal review. Every aspect of the incident was examined in detail, from the officer's actions to departmental policies. Witness statements, including the neighbor who recorded the video, were taken into account. The goal was to understand what happened, why it happened, and how to prevent similar incidents in the future. Transparency became a priority, not only for public trust, but for the integrity of the department itself. Throughout all this, the young professional continued to participate in community discussions, sharing their perspective calmly and clearly. Their approach was focused on solutions rather than blame, emphasizing the importance of communication, training, and mutual respect. Residents appreciated the balance between courage and humility, finding inspiration in how an ordinary individual could impact the larger conversation on public safety and justice. In the broader community, the story became a catalyst for change. Neighborhood groups began organizing workshops and meetings on citizen rights, legal advocacy, and how to handle encounters with law enforcement. Schools incorporated discussions about civic responsibility and ethical behavior into lessons. The ripple effect of a single traffic stop had created awareness, prompting thoughtful conversation that might not have existed otherwise. As the initial public shock settled, the young professional reflected on the experience. What had begun as a frightening encounter had grown into a journey of awareness, advocacy, and connection. They had transformed from a private citizen to someone whose experience informed others, showing that ordinary people could influence the systems around them. Despite the challenges, they remained committed to maintaining integrity, calm, and focus. By the end of this phase, the situation had shifted from personal fear to communal action. The neighborhood and soon the city recognized that accountability, transparency, and advocacy were essential. The young professional understood that while the incident had been difficult and stressful, it also opened doors to meaningful dialogue, education, and positive change. The community was no longer passive. It was engaged, aware, and determined to ensure that power was exercised responsibly. The second chapter of this story concluded with hope and determination. Public support, community awareness, and personal courage intertwined to create a foundation for justice. What started as a troubling traffic stop had now grown into a moment that challenged assumptions, sparked dialogue, and inspired action. The incident, once a source of fear, had become a catalyst for meaningful discussion, demonstrating how the attention that the incident had received continued to grow, reaching higher authorities who realized the severity of what had happened. Federal oversight agencies were informed, and soon a team of federal prosecutors became involved. The young professional felt a mixture of relief and nervousness, knowing that the situation was now being handled at a level beyond the local police department. There was a sense that justice would be pursued seriously and that their account, backed by clear evidence, would be treated with the attention it deserved. Investigators arrived quietly but efficiently. They reviewed every detail from the beginning, watching the video footage over and over to understand the dynamics of the encounter. Witnesses, including neighbors who had recorded and observed the event, were contacted and asked to provide statements. The young professional worked closely with the investigators, providing a clear and honest account of what had happened. They were asked to recall exact words, describe the officer's demeanor, and outlined every moment that felt threatening or unnecessary. Even the smallest details were important, as the investigation aimed to understand the full context and ensure that no aspect was overlooked. The presence of federal prosecutors immediately added a layer of seriousness to the proceedings. For the young professional, it felt both reassuring and intimidating. They knew that a thorough investigation could bring justice, but it also meant that every detail of the incident was scrutinized in ways they had not experienced before. Lawyers explained what to expect, outlining the process of federal oversight, the potential outcomes, and the importance of remaining composed and factual throughout. This guidance helped calm some of the anxiety, while preparing the young professional for the next steps. As investigators dug deeper, it became clear that Officer Daniels' actions had not only violated department protocols, but also crossed legal boundaries. They reviewed prior complaints, training records, and behavioral patterns. The evidence suggested that the officer had a history of responding aggressively in situations that did not warrant such conduct. This context was important not to create bias, but to establish a pattern and ensure that accountability extended beyond a single incident. The young professional's calm and detailed recounting of the event became a central piece of the investigation, highlighting the importance of citizen cooperation in upholding justice. The investigation team also interviewed community members who had witnessed the incident. Their testimonies added depth and perspective to the case. Neighbors described the fear and confusion they felt, the shock at seeing an authority figure behave aggressively in an everyday situation. Their observations supported the video evidence, creating a comprehensive picture of what had occurred. For the young professional, it was reassuring to know that the community's voice mattered and that their shared experience could contribute to holding the officer accountable. At the same time, the young professional faced the challenge of managing public attention. Media outlets continued to report updates, though federal authorities asked that specific details remain confidential during the investigation. Maintaining privacy while staying engaged with the process was a delicate balance. Friends and family offered support, helping to navigate interactions with reporters and providing a buffer against overwhelming stress. The young professional learned to prioritize their own well-being. Knowing that clarity and composure were essential in the months to come, community meetings and discussions continued. But now the focus shifted from public outrage to understanding the federal investigation. Residents were curious about what steps were being taken, how the process worked, and what the potential consequences could be. Advocacy groups provided education on citizens' rights, legal procedures, and the importance of evidence in accountability cases. The young professional often spoke at these meetings, not to seek attention but to share experience and encourage awareness, helping others understand how to respond if they ever face similar situations. Federal investigators coordinated with the local police department to obtain body camera footage, internal reports, and witness statements. Every aspect of the incident was analyzed carefully. Questions about procedure, officer training, and decision-making were examined. The investigation aimed not only to address the immediate incident, but also to identify systemic issues that could prevent future misconduct. The young professional observed the process, gaining insight into the complexity of law enforcement oversight and the importance of detailed documentation in achieving justice. Meanwhile, Officer Daniels was placed on extended administrative leave while the investigation proceeded. The officer's legal representation began preparing for potential proceedings, aware that the federal involvement made the situation more serious than any previous local review. The atmosphere at the police station was tense, with colleagues aware that the incident had sparked widespread attention and scrutiny. Rumors and speculation circulated, but the facts of the investigation were the focus of everyone involved. For the young professional, each day brought new developments. Requests for additional details, clarifications, and interviews became routine. The process required patience, composure, and trust in the system. They were reminded that justice is often gradual, requiring persistence and careful attention to detail. Support networks played an essential role, offering encouragement and reassurance during moments of stress and uncertainty. Over time, the young professional found strength in knowing that their experience was helping to bring about accountability and change. As federal prosecutors delved into the evidence, they recognized the importance of clear documentation, public records, and witness accounts. Their approach was methodical, ensuring that every decision was backed by evidence and aligned with legal standards. The young professionals' cooperation, combined with the video and witness testimonies, created a strong foundation for potential legal action. It became evident that the case was not just about one individual, but about ensuring proper conduct and accountability within law enforcement as a whole. Community engagement remained important. The young professional participated in town hall discussions and community forums where investigators sometimes provided updates without revealing sensitive details. These interactions helped maintain transparency and built trust between the authorities and residents. People learned about the federal review process, the steps involved in holding law enforcement accountable, and the importance of public cooperation in achieving justice. The experience transformed the neighborhood into a more informed, vigilant, and engaged community. During this period, the young professional also reflected on the personal impact of the incident. The encounter had been frightening, but it also highlighted resilience, courage, and the ability to act calmly under pressure. Sharing the story, cooperating with investigators, and participating in community discussions became empowering acts. It was a reminder that ordinary people could influence systems of authority and that their voices mattered in moments when accountability was needed. The federal team's involvement underscored the seriousness of the case. It became clear that the outcome would not only affect Officer Daniels, but could also set an example for future conduct within law enforcement. The investigation's transparency, thoroughness, and adherence to legal standards provided confidence that justice would be pursued properly. The young professional observed each step, understanding that patience and persistence were essential to achieving a fair resolution. Throughout the process, the young professional balanced public attention, personal reflection, and cooperation with authorities. Friends, family, and community members continued to provide support, creating a network that offered both practical assistance and emotional encouragement. Each interview, statement, and discussion reinforced the importance of clarity, honesty, and composure. The experience became a journey of personal growth, civic engagement, and advocacy. In the weeks that followed, the federal investigation progressed steadily. Detailed reports were compiled, evidence reviewed meticulously, and witness accounts cross-checked for consistency. Legal experts within the federal team prepared to determine the appropriate course of action based on the evidence. The young professional remained a key figure in the process, providing essential information and maintaining a calm, factual presence. Their experience demonstrated the power of perseverance and civic responsibility, showing that ordinary actions could have extraordinary impact. Community trust in the investigation grew as updates were shared appropriately. Residents saw that the process was fair, thorough, and focused on accountability. Workshops and discussions about citizen rights continued, emphasizing the role of evidence in reporting and achieving justice. The young professional's story inspired others to be mindful of their interactions with law enforcement and to document incidents responsibly. The neighborhood's awareness and engagement created a culture of vigilance, respect, and advocacy. As Part 3 of the story concludes, the investigation had reached a stage where the seriousness of the officer's misconduct was undeniable. Federal prosecutors were fully involved, evidence was carefully documented, and witness testimonies had strengthened the case. The young professional. The investigation continued, moving closer to a stage where legal action became unavoidable. Federal prosecutors worked meticulously, reviewing all the evidence, cross-checking statements, and evaluating Officer Daniels' past record. The young professional knew that the coming weeks would be crucial. Every detail mattered, and the responsibility of providing accurate information felt heavier than ever. They approached each interview and request with calm determination, understanding that their actions could influence the outcome significantly. The prosecutors convened meetings to determine the best strategy. They analyzed the video footage, notes from witness testimonies, and the timeline of events. It became clear that Officer Daniels' actions were not merely a lapse in judgment, but a violation serious enough to warrant charges. The legal team emphasized that the process had to be precise, careful, and thorough. They explained to the young professional what each step meant, from the filing of formal charges to the preparation for court proceedings. The weight of the process was real, but so was the hope that justice would prevail. Meanwhile, the neighborhood continued to follow the story closely. Residents discussed developments, shared updates, and expressed support for the young professional. Community groups held informal meetings to talk about civil rights, police conduct, and how citizens could respond in similar situations. These conversations were thoughtful, measured, and focused on understanding the system rather than seeking revenge. The young professional participated in these discussions, sharing experience and guidance, emphasizing that clarity, calmness, and documentation were the keys to addressing misconduct. The media coverage intensified. Local news outlets reported on the federal investigation, explaining the seriousness of the case without sensationalizing it. Interviews with legal experts helped the public understand what federal oversight entailed and why it mattered. The young professional, while cautious about public statements, provided factual updates when necessary, ensuring the story remained centered on justice and accountability rather than speculation or drama. Officer Daniels' legal team prepared their defense, but it became apparent that the evidence was compelling. The video, multiple witness accounts, and consistent testimony made it difficult to deny the severity of the misconduct. Internal discussions within the police department reflected concern and acknowledgement that the incident could set a precedent. Officers realized that misconduct, even in a seemingly routine situation, could have significant consequences. The young professional observed these dynamics. Understanding the broader impact of the case on the law enforcement system, community support remained strong. Residents organized gatherings to discuss progress, ensuring the young professional did not feel alone in navigating this challenging period. They shared stories of similar experiences, discussed strategies for legal advocacy, and explored ways to raise awareness about civil rights. These interactions were empowering, reminding the young professional that individual courage, supported by collective engagement, could influence systems of authority. The neighborhood, once simply a place of residence, had become a hub of civic consciousness and advocacy. As preparations for legal proceedings advanced, the federal team worked on compiling a detailed report. This document included every aspect of the incident, from the initial traffic stop to the escalation, the officer's behavior, and the impact on the young professional. The report was structured to present clear evidence, demonstrate patterns of misconduct, and support the case for formal charges. The young professional was asked to review statements, clarify timelines, and confirm details to ensure accuracy. Each interaction reinforced the importance of patience, honesty, and composure in navigating the legal system. The young professional also focused on personal well-being. The process was mentally and emotionally demanding, requiring resilience and support. Friends, family, and counselors provided guidance, helping to manage stress and maintain perspective. The young professional practiced techniques to remain calm, reflect on progress, and approach each step methodically. They realized that their experience was not only about seeking justice, but also about maintaining balance and clarity while under pressure. As the case moved toward formal charges, the community's attention remained high. Local organizations highlighted the importance of transparency and accountability in law enforcement. Educational workshops were organized to inform residents about citizen rights, proper documentation, and legal procedures. The young professional contributed by sharing insights into how ordinary individuals could navigate complex situations, emphasizing that knowledge, composure, and preparation were powerful tools. Legal preparations included reviewing Officer Daniels' prior conduct, identifying any patterns, and assessing departmental responses. Federal prosecutors ensured that all evidence was organized, testimonies verified, and legal standards met. The young professional was an active participant in this process, providing information when needed and maintaining composure during interviews. Their dedication to clarity and truth strengthened the case and set an example for others facing similar situations. Media coverage continued to balance reporting and respect for privacy. The young professional's identity was protected in certain stories, while the focus remained on the facts of the incident and the legal process. Discussions emphasized the significance of accountability and the role of evidence in ensuring justice. This approach helped maintain public interest while avoiding unnecessary sensationalism. The young professional observed that factual, measured communication had a stronger impact than dramatic storytelling, reinforcing the power of clarity and truth. In parallel, Officer Daniel's position became increasingly unstable. Internal reviews, federal scrutiny, and mounting public awareness created pressure on the department to act responsibly. The officer's defense recognized the challenge of contesting clear evidence, supported by multiple witnesses and video documentation. The young professional understood that the seriousness of the situation was now undeniable, and that the process would likely lead to significant consequences throughout this period. The young professional reflected on the personal impact of the experience. The incident had been frightening, but it also highlighted resilience, courage, and the ability to act calmly under pressure. Each step in the process reinforced the value of staying composed, focused, and informed. The young professional also recognized the importance of community, legal guidance, and advocacy networks in navigating complex situations. Their personal growth intertwined with the broader pursuit of justice, creating a sense of purpose and empowerment. The neighborhood, inspired by the young professional's actions, became more vigilant and informed. Residents paid attention to interactions with law enforcement, documented incidents responsibly, and engaged in constructive dialogue about rights and responsibilities. Community meetings explored ways to ensure transparency, improve communication, and strengthen trust between citizens and authorities. The young professional's experience became a catalyst for civic engagement, demonstrating how individual courage, supported by collective action, could influence outcomes. As federal prosecutors prepared to move forward with charges, the young professional understood the significance of the moment. The evidence was clear, the testimonies consistent, and the legal framework supportive. The anticipation of court proceedings was balanced by confidence that the process was fair, thorough, and focused on accountability. Each interaction with investigators and legal advisors reinforced the importance of clarity, patience, and composure, providing a sense of control amidst the uncertainty. Community support remained a constant source of strength. Residents continued to provide encouragement, share updates, and participate in discussions about legal processes and citizen rights. The young professional felt a sense of solidarity, knowing that their experience was part of a larger conversation about accountability and justice. This support helped maintain perspective and reinforce the belief that individual actions could inspire broader change. As Part 4 drew to a close, the investigation had reached a point where legal action was imminent. Federal prosecutors had compiled a comprehensive case supported by video evidence, witness accounts, and detailed statements. Officer Daniels faced serious scrutiny, with consequences that were likely to be significant. The young professional remained composed, resilient, and focused, navigating the process with clarity and determination. The incident, once a frightening encounter, had transformed into a journey of advocacy, civic engagement, and personal growth, setting the stage for justice to be served and demonstrating the power of ordinary individuals to influence systems of authority. The day of the legal proceedings arrived with a quiet intensity that felt almost surreal. The young professional prepared carefully, understanding that this moment could finally bring resolution to an ordeal that had lasted weeks and had drawn public attention far beyond their neighborhood. The courtroom was filled with people, community members, media representatives, legal professionals, and officials from both the local and federal authorities. The young professional remained calm, taking deep breaths and focusing on the facts that had guided them through this journey. The proceedings began with a formal presentation of the case by federal prosecutors. Every detail of the incident was outlined clearly: the traffic stop, Officer Daniels' excessive actions, the witness accounts, and the video evidence. The presentation was precise, measured, and compelling. Each piece of evidence reinforced the narrative that this was more than a routine stop. It was a serious misuse of authority. The young professional followed closely, feeling a mix of relief and anticipation, knowing that justice was now being pursued through proper channels. Witnesses were called to testify, including neighbors who had recorded and observed the incident. Each account supported the young professional's story, adding credibility and depth to the evidence. Observers in the courtroom noted the consistency and clarity of the testimonies, recognizing the seriousness of the situation. The young professional remained composed, listening carefully, and occasionally clarifying points when asked by the prosecutors. Their focus on honesty and precision helped strengthen the case and maintain credibility throughout the proceedings. Officer Daniels' defense attempted to challenge the evidence, suggesting alternative interpretations of the events and questioning the behavior of the young professional. However, the video footage and multiple consistent accounts made it difficult to cast serious doubt on the facts. The courtroom atmosphere was tense, but the clarity of the evidence left little room for confusion. Legal experts in the room noted the thoroughness of the federal investigation and the strength of the presented case. The young professional felt a growing sense of validation, realizing that their patience and careful documentation had played a critical role in ensuring that justice could be pursued. As the trial progressed, the emotional impact of the incident became evident. The young professional recounted the fear, confusion, and stress they had experienced during the traffic stop. They spoke calmly and clearly, focusing on how the officers' actions had affected their sense of safety and trust. The courtroom listened attentively, recognizing that this was not just a matter of procedural misconduct, but also a deeply personal violation of rights. The young professional's composure and focus during testimony demonstrated courage and resilience, leaving a strong impression on everyone present. The community's response outside the courtroom was equally significant. Residents gathered to show support, holding signs and offering encouragement. Local media covered the proceedings with an emphasis on accountability and justice, highlighting the role of evidence, transparency, and federal oversight. The young professional, while focused on the trial, felt the presence of a supportive community, understanding that their experience had inspired awareness, dialogue, and advocacy far beyond their personal situation. The legal team presented a detailed analysis of Officer Daniels' past conduct, training records, and any previous complaints. This context demonstrated a pattern of behavior, reinforcing the seriousness of the charges. The young professional had contributed to this process by providing accurate, factual statements and cooperating fully with investigators. Their actions were central to ensuring that the evidence was complete, consistent, and compelling. Each step of the trial emphasized the importance of citizen participation in holding authority figures accountable. Throughout the proceedings, the young professional maintained a focus on clarity and truth. They answered questions honestly, recounted events with precision, and resisted any inclination to exaggerate or dramatize. This approach helped maintain credibility and underscored the fairness of the federal process. Observers, both inside and outside the courtroom, noted the professionalism and calmness displayed, recognizing that ordinary citizens could play a crucial role in ensuring justice when misconduct occurs. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as closing arguments began. Federal prosecutors summarized the evidence, highlighting the video footage, witness accounts, and the pattern of misconduct. They emphasized the need for accountability, not only for Officer Daniels, but also as a message to law enforcement agencies about the importance of proper conduct. The young professional listened carefully, feeling a sense of anticipation and hope that the careful documentation and persistent efforts would lead to a fair outcome. Officer Daniels' defense made a final attempt to mitigate the situation, focusing on character references and questioning the interpretation of events. Yet the weight of evidence and the consistency of witness testimonies made their arguments less persuasive. The courtroom remained attentive, aware that the facts presented overwhelmingly supported the prosecution's case. The young professional felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that truth and preparation were prevailing over attempts to diminish accountability. As the jury deliberated, the young professional reflected on the journey that had led to this moment. What began as a simple traffic stop had evolved into a complex process of investigation, documentation, community engagement, and legal scrutiny. They thought about the support they had received from neighbors, friends, family, and community members. They recognized that their calmness, honesty, and composure had been essential in navigating a challenging situation and contributing to a broader conversation about justice and accountability. The verdict was announced. Officer Daniels was found guilty of multiple counts of misconduct. The decision was met with a mixture of relief, validation, and hope. Federal prosecutors emphasized that the ruling was a strong message that abuse of authority would not be tolerated. The courtroom felt the weight of justice being served, and the young professional experienced a profound sense of closure. The months of stress, uncertainty, and vigilance had culminated in a fair and just resolution. Following the verdict, the impact of the case extended beyond the courtroom. Local law enforcement agencies reviewed policies, training, and accountability measures. Workshops and discussions about citizen rights, proper documentation, and effective communication were organized in the community. The young professional participated in these initiatives, sharing insights and encouraging awareness. Their experience became a catalyst for education, advocacy, and systemic improvement. Community members celebrated the outcome as a victory for accountability and civic engagement. Residents recognized the power of ordinary citizens to influence justice, and the young professional's actions became a model for constructive, informed, and courageous participation. The story inspired dialogue, reflection, and a renewed focus on transparency and law enforcement practices. The young professional continued to reflect on personal growth through this experience. They recognized that fear and uncertainty had been natural responses, but resilience, patience, and clear thinking had guided them through the process. Their ability to stay composed, document accurately, and engage responsibly with authorities had made a tangible difference. The experience reinforced the importance of civic responsibility, awareness, and the courage to speak up in moments that demand accountability. As time passed, the young professional's story became part of educational materials and community discussions about law enforcement, civil rights, and citizen advocacy. Workshops in schools, community centers, and local organizations used the case as an example of how ordinary individuals could ensure fairness and justice. The focus was always on empowerment, clarity, and responsibility, highlighting that knowledge and composure could transform a challenging situation into a meaningful opportunity for change. The neighborhood, once shaken by a tense encounter, now experienced a renewed sense of confidence and awareness. Residents became more engaged, informed, and proactive about community safety and civic participation. The young professional's actions had sparked not only accountability for one officer, but also a broader understanding of rights, responsibilities, and the importance of documenting incidents accurately. Reflecting on the entire journey, the young professional felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The incident, while initially frightening and overwhelming, had transformed into a moment of empowerment and advocacy. They had faced fear, uncertainty, and public attention with calm and composure, contributing to a fair outcome and inspiring positive change. The experience demonstrated that ordinary citizens, armed with honesty, evidence, and courage, could influence systems of authority and promote justice. The final chapter of this story closed with hope, resilience, and meaningful change. Officer Daniels faced the consequences of his actions. The federal system had ensured accountability, and the community had learned the value of vigilance, advocacy, and responsible engagement. The young professional, through patience, clarity, and courage, had turned a personal ordeal into a story of empowerment, justice, and inspiration. The experience left a